How's it going, everyone? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. Last episode was pretty interesting. We kind of got to think about Rena's past, consider it, I guess. We can't exactly ignore it. I thought that she was just crazy, but maybe there's just a little bit more going on. Maybe there's a lot going on that we just aren't really aware of here. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. There has to be. Given everything that we've been exposed to so far, we can already come to a conclusion that this isn't a normal village. And yeah, there's a lot of weirdness going on here. There definitely is. I guess these episodes are going to continue to be spooky. There'll be at least some sort of way that I'll get scared in every episode, so I guess just be ready for that. I don't know if there's just a... I think that's just how it is. That's going to go for the rest of this playthrough. That's just par for the course. I got myself into this mess, and I'll have to see it to the end here. It's going to be a hard week. Every day I'm probably going to have to record a 45-minute long episode or something like that. Probably longer if I continue to ramble in the intros and outros, because I want to try and squeeze this all in for Halloween. It's going to be freaking rough. This free study period was a convenient time to consider where I stood. I gently closed my eyes and pondered the ridiculous position I was in right now. First of all, what I shouldn't forget was how dangerous of a situation I was in. Oh yeah, we almost got killed. That's another thing. I had fallen out of favor with them. After interacting with Ueshi-san multiple times, I could see it as I can't speak today. Good job, me. I could see it as I was getting closer to the heart of the matter. The warning yesterday with the mochi was a good indicator of that. No, calling it a warning was just my habit of understanding things. It probably had no meaning beyond stunting my progress and buying themselves some time. Until they had a method of completely erasing me. They were just biding their time. Even though they were keeping me under their thumb with threats, it didn't change the fact that I knew too much. The chilling sensation of my desk made me recall Satoshi Hojo. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Hojo? Oh, we'll roll with it for now. The boy who was using this seat until last year when he disappeared. Was he also similar to me? Did he learn something he shouldn't have and was erased? Damn, I wouldn't let them get rid of me so easily. Never. But were they really trying to kill me? I've had these contradictory feelings for a while now. Even though I suspected them, I felt I had to cover for them. Even having witnessed all of their suspicious behavior, a morning like this just made it all seem like an elaborate hoax. No. That's just what I want to believe. Doubting my friends, covering for them, my life was in danger. Or was it? Actually, I was debating the wrong point. Given my current situation, those points were something that should have been deliberated on a long time ago. But really, Rena and the rest of them, were they actually aiming to kill me? The little voice inside me continued to torment me with these unresolvable trains of thought. Are you an idiot, Keiichi Maibara? The answer should be obvious. But maybe that sewing needle might have just been an accident, right? How could you screw up and drop a sewing needle into a piece of mochi? The benefit of the doubt can only go so far. Both Rena and Mion had acted and behaved suspiciously, but maybe it was all some sort of misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? It was just suspicious. It was outright ludicrous, right? Rena just corrected me for lying, and Mion only asked me about what I had for lunch. Rena was standing outside my door eavesdropping for a solid hour. She was probably just waiting for my phone call to end. For a whole hour outside your room, and is it normal to go home afterwards without saying anything? You heard from Ueshi-san, didn't you? About what Rena did at her former school? But at the hospital, she said it was Oyashiro-sama's fault. Yeah, why'd we say that out loud? I inadvertently blurted those words out loud. Hearing myself say that so directly left me dumbfounded for a few moments. Afterwards, I had to look around to check if anyone else had heard it. My little soliloquy cut a little too close to the truth. Even though I could feel the murderous intent from Rena and the others, part of me somewhere was still trying to deny that. And this late in the game, such hesitation could be fatal. I knew that. But I was just your average student, a man living his normal, ordinary life. Do you think I could suddenly believe that my friends, who I had been happily laughing together with up until last Sunday, now intended to kill me? Right? This time I remembered to keep my voice down so only I could hear it. It sort of seemed like a yell still. There was one thing I now understood. I was too soft. I didn't completely understand how dangerous Rena and the rest of them were. No, I wasn't trying to understand. I was too soft for not listening to Oishi-san when he was earnestly showing me the heart of the matter. I didn't listen because I was too busy pretending to be dejected. I didn't comprehend it. I was just running away. I didn't comprehend it, so nobody had any notion to try and kill me. I needed to get rid of such naive thoughts. As I made that resolution, I heard the bell signaling the end of class. So soon. The day was already over. I didn't recall eating lunch or doing anything in class. My friends were putting their desks together in preparation for club activities. Not long ago, I would probably have happily jumped into that circle. But not now. The way Sadako spoke was so typical and familiar. It almost physically hurt. Seeing Rena's expression, which said she was really, was looking forward to today, was hard to take. Hey Keiichi, maybe Ueshi-san is just some enormous jerk trying to separate me from the others by lying to me? Slap. Trying to expunge such weak-minded thinking, I slapped myself in the face.
Keiichi-kun?
Yeah. Was Rena really trying to kill me? I wish someone would tell me it was a hoax. I didn't care if it actually was one or not, I just wanted someone to say it was. Gah, yet another weak-willed thought. How did I ever become this naive? Apparently, that was how my inner dilemma appeared to Rena. Upon hearing that I wasn't going to participate in the club meeting, Mio pouted unhappily.
Kei-chanがリベンジ熱望してたってんで、今日はせっかくこの間の推理ゲームにしたってのにな。
ケイイチさんにはリターンマッチに臨む熱いハートはありませんですの？情けないですわね。
I mean, call it what you will. I wouldn't fall for some dumb taunt. Without even a real retort, I just grabbed my bag and was about to get up. Someone's hand perched itself gently on my head.
ケイイチ、具合悪そうです。かわいそうですよ。
It was Rika-chan. She was stretched up as far as she could, doing her best to pat my head with her petite hand. It felt so nice, which made things even harder.
ごめんな、みんな。じゃ。
I want to say that Rika would probably be the nice one of the group. You know, if all of them really were crazy and had murderous intents. But I feel like that'd just be a facade, and that Rika was the craziest one of all. That is, if all of them really are nutty. So far, we only know that Rena and Mion are the ones to watch out for, but I'm starting to wonder about the village in general. That's all I said as I quickly left the classroom. And they said something to me as I was leaving, but I couldn't make it out. Hopefully it's not a threat. I managed to make it all the way to the entrance in that state of mind, took out my shoes, put them on, and went forward. Forward. Harden that heart, Keiichi Maibara. They were, for some unfathomable reason, trying to kill me. They were plotting something dubious, watching my every move. But I couldn't hate them, because weren't they my friends? Part of me lamented? Whatever. Man, I'm having a fun time with words today, aren't I? My naivete fuck me. Or naive, while another part lamented the fact that I had lost something important by lamenting over it in the first place. It felt like my personality was being ripped in two along with my body. If this is what Oyashiro-sama's curse was like, then it was just too harsh. Hey Oyashiro-sama, I was wrong for not believing in your curse, but I believe in it now. Completely. Your curse does exist, so seriously, give me a break. I beg you, come on. No, I don't think it'd be that easy, unfortunately. So are we able to... Shit, now it's nighttime? Goddamn. I was gonna say, like, were we able to get home okay, but I guess so. Dinner was unusually bland. It had no flavor or aroma. The miso soup that normally tantalized my appetite instead tasted like nothing but boiled water. Dad was eating with us that night. It was a rare occurrence in this household. When he got into his work, he ate and slept on his own schedule. My dad never cared about the time. Since my dad was at the dinner table, it either meant that he had just reached a good point to take a break, or he was in a slump.
とにかく作家のモチベーションってものを理解してないんだよ彼は。
タイアップの話だって口約束なんでしょ？そんなに反りが合わないならきっぱりお断りしたら？
助け合いの世界だからお互い様だとは思うんだけど、これじゃ仕事にな。
I wasn't able to pick out much of my mom and dad's conversation, but I could tell it wasn't a very pleasant topic. That, of course, made the disgusting food even less appealing. Staring listlessly at the exchange between my parents, my mind wandered off the same thought processes I had going on all day long. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words. Friends close to me, no, they used to be friends, but I could no longer trust them. Right now, I was greatly lacking in allies. People I trusted, people I could depend on when push came to shove. They were something I didn't have. Having just one ally would have been incredibly reassuring in the currently hopeless situation I was in. I put down my chopsticks and looked over at my parents, who were still talking about work. The first course of action that came to mind was to tell my parents everything. Currently, there wasn't a single person from Hinamizawa I could trust 100%. That meant the only people I could trust were my parents. But if I told them everything that happened up until now, would they understand? Rena, for example. That neighborly Rena, who was so diligent in looking after me, came to get me every day and sometimes brought over a share of what she made. How could I explain that she wanted to kill me? No matter how I explained, it would probably be difficult for anybody to comprehend. My somewhat eccentric dad wouldn't understand, and my high-strung mom would probably drag me off to a psychiatrist in the blink of an eye. Sadly, that was the amount of trust that existed in our relationship. Even if they did come to understand, what could they possibly do? Unless they could uncover the truth, they wouldn't be able to protect me. No, by informing them of these unnecessary things, I'd be putting my parents in danger as well. Considering that the victims in past incidents were often married couples, I couldn't even joke about it. For the entire Maibara family to have an accident or to just vanish into thin air, it was easily possible in Hinamizawa. What was important here was that knowing something unnecessary put you in danger. The most unsettling question was, how did they know that I knew? As long as they didn't know, my parents might not fall victim. That was one way to think about it, I guess. At least it was like that in my case. After I found out, things started becoming odd. I think things only became odd because we're now noticing the weirdness. I mean, yeah, sure, events technically occurred right after we learned, but that could also be a part of it. In other words, it meant the following. As long as my parents didn't know anything, nothing would happen to them. Which means that this house would be safe, or a safe haven, as long as my parents were in. I knew these were just assumptions based on conjecture on top of conjecture. Wanting this house to be a safe haven, that was the pinnacle of my weak-willed method of thinking. I had to concede that it was not completely safe, it was only safer than the outside. I knew that I couldn't rely on my parents. No, I couldn't risk getting my parents involved. Then the only person who could be my ally would be Oishi-san, him and him alone. He was the only person who understood the situation I was in. He didn't care so much about my safety, but he was, without a doubt, passionate about solving this case. It was a bit frustrating. Ueshi-san was basically the whole reason I was in this mess. Now to get out of it, I had to rely on him, meaning it was all going according to his devices. It was just my job to look appetizing while bobbing in the waves as bait. Then when the fish started gathering around, Ueshi-san would pull up the big haul. It was slightly infuriating, but even I thought that was the best course of action. So then, what should I do? Patience was the first rule of fishing. Just keep waiting until the fish actually bites. But I wasn't simply bait. There were lots of ways for me to struggle before being devoured. When they struck, I needed to somehow dodge just enough and tag out to Ueshi-san. No question, it was going to be hard. The timing to bring Ueshi-san in would be difficult. He was in the city, not Hinamizawa. So if I phoned him in the moment of need, it would take him about 30 minutes to reach me. So I needed to run away for those 30 minutes. For example, if we set up a rendezvous point for dire situations or something. I'd just have to hide out there until Ueshi-san arrived.
よし。少し見えてきたぞ。
Sorry, I'm dying. I was still being chased around in the dark by boogeymen, but now I knew which way to go. I would never have imagined this would be so reassuring. Oh yeah. It would probably be best if I had a concealed weapon for when things got rough. Typically, that would call for a switchblade. But that wasn't too reassuring for combat. Also, since it was recognized as a weapon by the public, that also wasn't good. Really, when the time comes, a long weapon like a bat would work in my favor. Oh yeah, we're Little Slugger now. I remembered there was a metal bat at school. Oh yeah, now we're definitely gonna be Little Slugger. I could be confident with that when push came to shove. If I pretended I was practicing my swing, then it wouldn't be suspicious for me to always carry it around. I could go to school early tomorrow and secure it. Just possessing a weapon may be enough to deter them. Also, one more thing, insurance. Oh yeah, these rates, man, they're insane. It could be something like a note or memo. Sorry. I could write down everything that's happened as a sort of journal. In case I suddenly vanished, the journal would be left behind. With my journal in his possession, Ueshi-san should be able to avenge my death. I left my parents engrossed in their conversation about work and went back to my room. Damn, we're really thinking about this. I mean, I guess it's understandable. I tore out a piece of paper from a notebook and made my way to my desk. I feel like this is also going to be used against us in some way, kind of like that phone call was. Last time I wrote a journal was for summer homework in elementary school. In the off chance something bad happened, the police could use my diary as a lead. So I should only write down the facts. How should I start? I jotted down my thoughts as they came. I, Keiichi Maibara, am in fear for my life. It made me laugh nervously. It was a line that showed up often in detective stories. I never even dreamed that I would be in this type of situation where I'd write it myself. I do not know why they are after my life. Rena and the others were suspicious, but I had no proof. And that's why I couldn't write anything more. I laughed wryly at myself for writing such a passage draped in mystery. Would the police be able to get the hint from reading this enigmatic passage? I could only pray that they would. What I prayed for the most, though, was that this journal never needed to play its part. Here I laughed nervously. It was too simple, so I wrote down one more line I just thought of. The only thing I do know is that it has to do with Oyashiro-sama's curse. Was that too much? I probably shouldn't write more than that. If I wrote any more, then it would seem like I was just delusional. In order to appear to the reader, I don't know if I was supposed to say appeal to the reader, that the person who had written this was of sound mind, I chose not to write anything else at that point. Okay, maybe that's supposed to be appear, not appeal. I just needed to add more as I learned more about the truth. I folded the paper and thought about a place to hide it. By hiding it somewhere obvious, there was the chance that they would uncover it as well. Or instead, On the other hand, if it was in too obscure of a look, well, fuck me there. I don't know why I did that. To the log. On the other hand, if it was too obscure of a location, then there was the risk of nobody finding it at all. In the end, I decided to take the clock off my wall and stick my folded note on the back of it with Scotch tape. After that, I put the clock back into its normal position. Yeah, it didn't look like anything was hidden behind it. Now I needed to set it up such that if anything happens to me, my parents could find it. I looked at it from countless different angles until I was satisfied, and I made my way downstairs. My parents were still talking about work. It didn't look like it was going to end anytime soon, so I cut in.
話中ごめん。ちょっと聞いてもらっていいかな。
I'd never started off a conversation like that before, so my parents were both startled. They stopped talking and turned towards me.
どうしたのケイチ。
お願いがあるんだけど、聞いてほしいんだ。もしもだよ。
圭一、急ぎの話じゃなきゃ後にしなさい。お父さんとお母さんはちょっと今、急ぎの話をしてるんだ。
I didn't think their talk was more urgent than mine. In any case, I stated my request.
もしもだよ。俺が死んだらさ。
Both of my parents' eyes went as wide as saucers.
死んだらさ、俺の部屋にある時計、あれを棺に入れてほしいんだ。
If they did that, then they'd probably find it. My memoir. Both my parents, both my parents remained wide-eyed, not moving an inch. I couldn't blame them.
あの時計、工作の授業で作ったお気に入りなんだ。頼むよ。
どうしたのケイチ。何かあったの
Mom was finally able to ask me with a questioning gaze. Of course, this was a normal response for when someone's son suddenly started talking about a subject like this. I felt bad about making them worry, but right now I just wanted them to think about the clock in my room. With the awkward mood leaving the room in silence, I decided to go back up to my room.
俺さ、明日は早くに学校に行きたいから、もう寝るよ。おやすみ。
Saying only that, I left the living room. That boy ain't right. I needed to get to school early tomorrow and secure that bat. I should make today the last day I went to school with Rena. As I climbed the stairs, I heard my mom call my name, but I pretended not to hear her. It wasn't something I could talk about with my parents. If I talked about it, it would only make things more dangerous. The fight that had begun was mine and mine alone, and I couldn't rely on anybody. I wouldn't be killed. Not when I still knew nothing. So you're saying that square clock in the top right is what we made, okay. You know, I made a clock once. It's like a engineering class that kind of mixed in with wood shop. A little bit of wood shopping. It was pretty tight. Not feeling so hot. I'm never feeling that hot. I'm usually feeling pretty cold. So we got an achievement. I was going to say we're like, with that, I guess 8 out of 14 achievements done. So, I think there's like 5 more achievements that are related to the story and then one just to view all the tips. So I want to say that we're past halfway and the story is moving along quicker than it was in the beginning. So maybe we can squeeze all this in? I don't know. I want to. I can only go through this shit so quick.
最近、ケイチ君の元気がないね。機嫌が悪いのかな
Now this is going to be a very interesting perspective.
さーて、どうしたんだろうね。恋の病にでもかかってるんじゃないの
Uh-huh.
みーちゃん、それ飛躍しすぎ。どう思う
さあね。ケイちゃんひょっとして。
Uh-oh.
かな
Uh-oh.
わかんない。
あの日、ケイちゃんと車で話してたの。中年のでっぷりした男だったんでしょ
Is it just these two that are talking here?
うん。間違いない。
大石のやつ、ケイちゃんに何を吹き込んでるのかな
真剣そうだったよ。ケイチ君は顔面蒼白だった。
あのね、レナはよく知らないだろうけど、実はあいつ、 お社様の使いなんだよ。
What, Ueshi-san is?
何の話？
あいつが現れるとね、必ず鬼隠しが起こるの。
That's,
本当だよ。
that's probably not good.
あれ？そうなの？
おととし、リカちゃんのお母さんが受水したでしょ？その直前に大石が尋問してたんだよ。
そういえば、サトシ君が転校する前にもいたね。
転校？レナはいいやつだよな。
で、今度はケイチ君の前に現れたんだ。じゃあ、ケイチ君も鬼隠しになっちゃう？
I mean, that would, like, I want to say they still view Keiichi as a friend. There's just that weird side of them that kind of, like, kicks in here and there and just starts defending the village and Oyashiro-sama and all that. So I want to say that they're concerned. An empty silence hung in the air, and then it was suddenly interrupted. By loud laughter. That could be taken in two different ways. Like, they could be laughing in a crazy way, like, yeah, Yashiro gonna fucking take this man's life and all that. Or they could just be laughing it off as a joke. You know, like, he's not gonna die. He's not gonna get demoned away. Keiichi Maibara, impossible. Unthinkable. This was the first time I'd ever woke up with such clarity. It was 5:59, just moments before my alarm would go off. Shit, man, I can relate to that ever since I've been working. I was amazed at the precision of my internal clock. I hate my internal clock, and my weekends are just not good anymore when I wake up. I had made preparations for the next day of school before I went to bed. I changed quickly and descended to the deserted lower floor. It appeared that my mom was still asleep. Neither breakfast nor lunch was ready. Yesterday, I was unilaterally declared, or I just unilaterally declared, that I would be leaving early today, so it couldn't be helped. I slathered jam on some bread and topped it with instant cocoa. Just as I was finishing up breakfast, Mom rose groggily from her slumber.
あら、ケイチ、今日は早いのね。学校の行事か何か？
別に。
Answering bluntly, I picked up my bag and stood after stuffing 2 slices of bread down my throat. I wish I had that
どう
ability.
行くの？お弁当は？もうちょっと待ってくれないとできないわよ。
If I waited for her to make my lunch, then it would end up being the same time as usual. If I did that, it would raise the chances of me running into Rena and Mion on the way. Yes, from today onwards, I was going to school alone.
今日はいいよ。
じゃあお昼はどうするの？
抜け出して商店で菓子パンでも買うよ。
そう。じゃあこれ、お昼代ね。ちゃんとレシート持ってくるのよ。
I took the 1,000 yen bill from Mom and slipped it into my pocket.
こんなに早いけど、レナちゃんたちもこんなに早いの？
いや、俺だけ。
レナちゃんには早く出るって伝えてあるの？
I have no reason to tell her every little detail now, do I? Finding it difficult answering the onslaught of questions, I made an annoyed face.
レナが来たら、ケイチは先に行ったって伝えてよ。
ちょっとケイチ、待ちなさい。
It's not that I didn't trust my parents. I just couldn't rely on them. They couldn't help me, and I could only hope that they didn't get involved. It was safer that way. My mom's annoying voice was cut off by the slam of the door. For the first time since I moved here, I headed down the road to school alone. They probably see this as like, oh man, Keiichi's just being, stubborn, he's, shoot, there's an actual word for this. Distant? No, that's not it. But, you know, teens are always like that at some point, you know, it's whatever, just ignore it, and, you know, you see it all the time in other, like, fictional media. Up until now, I had always walked down the same path at the same time each day. So I always met with the same people at the same places. But today was different. I didn't meet the people I would normally, and nobody was at the places where I would have normally met them. Of course, Rena wasn't in the spot where we usually met, and there wasn't anyone at the spot where we would have met up with Mion. The length of the tree's shadows, the morning air, and the brightness of the sun, it was a completely different type of morning from what I was used to. Without a doubt, it felt strange. It left me with the impression that I had destroyed the illusion Hinamizawa had set up for me before I had enough time to prepare all of the props needed to deceive me.
あら、ケイチ君。今朝は早いわね。みんなで早朝から待ち合わせ？
The person who called out to me was someone we always passed by as they were walking or were taking a walk along the edge of the fields. Their name was, I forgot. Of course, this wasn't the spot where we usually passed each other.
今朝は早くに目が覚めちゃったので、気分転換なんです。あまり気にしないでください。
I threw out a random excuse.
レナちゃんやミオンちゃんはどうしたんだい？今日は一人なの？
ええ、まあ。
I was being asked the same type of questions my mom was asking, so I answered them in the same uninteresting, vague manner. It wasn't funny being asked where Rena was each time I passed by someone, but maybe it was to be expected. Yeah, I mean, we were always latched onto her, especially in these mornings. It was because for so long we were always together so amicably. Even I felt that if I let my guard down, we could still be Stop it, Keiichi. Don't think about that anymore. You spent all day yesterday thinking about how dangerous it was to go soft, didn't you? What? Yeah? Oh, shit. Beep. A car horn blared from out of nowhere. Even though I was walking, lost in thought, that horn was way too close. A mechanical behemoth barreled at me from behind, catching me completely off guard. By the time I turned around, the van's hulking chassis was almost on top of me. I'd seen plenty of cars veer to the opposite shoulder to avoid pedestrians, but this car was doing the opposite. It felt like there was somebody on the opposite shoulder and the van was swerving in my direction to avoid them. That blissfully ignorant train of thought delayed me from realizing something much, much more important. Are we about to get smacked? That large mass was hurtling right at me. Was it going to hit me? The inside of my head instantly flooded with a painfully cold liquid. In that moment, the scene before me, no time itself, had frozen. This is some music right here. This is what I listen to when I'm going to sleep. In the silence of that frozen moment, I compared the van so close that I had no way to dodge it, and my body, the upper half, twisted awkwardly in order to look behind me. There was no way I could dive out of the way in my current position. If I lost focus now, this moment would unpause, and I would probably be plowed over, caught in this silly pose. Bend my upper body over towards the paddy by the side of the road. If I bent far enough, I'd get away with just being hit by the side view mirror. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, the temporal stasis was shattered by the deafening sound of the van. The side mirror struck my shoulder, sending me spinning off through the air like a top, locked in my contorted position. Splash. Sent tumbling through the air, I crashed into the muddy paddy by the side of the road. My entire body was soiled and drenched. But the choice I had made in that instant was unmistakably for the best. I was covered in mud, but when the alternative was being hit by the car, it was the closest I could be to being unscathed. Rising out from the paddy, I had enough in me to glare over at the stopped van and yell profanities at the driver. I'm not sure if he was able to see me, but the van sped off suddenly.
待てよクソこれって引き逃げって言うんじゃねえのかよ
I couldn't help but continue yelling out profanities. The disgrace from being covered in mud hurt me more than any physical wounds. I slogged through the muddy paddy and made my way back onto the road.
これって犯罪じゃねえのかよチクショー
Shit, I'll track you down and sue you. If I go looking for a van, I'm sure to find it in this little village. The path I was on had rice paddies on either side, and it had become so narrow that one car could barely fit through. It wasn't a place you could tear full speed down in a car, let alone pass by pedestrians. Not only was it a narrow road, but the car just now was closer to my side of the road than the other when it had passed me. Or hadn't went past me, sorry. Even as I cursed, I was just desperately trying to suppress the dark cloud roiling up within me. What an interesting little scenario that just happened there. And this wasn't just a hit and run. That car just now was trying to run me over, wasn't it? Thinking back, I did feel like there had been a car creeping up on me slowly for a while. That's right, as soon as I'd parted ways with that person taking a walk, I had that feeling the whole time. If it had wanted to pass me, then it had no shortage of chances. Normally, I would have felt suspicious and turned around sooner. But I was lost in thought, and was now kicking myself for not realizing it was there sooner. And then when the path became narrow and there was no one else in sight, he floored it. If I had hesitated even for a moment, the result would have been no laughing matter. As the adrenaline rush from nearly being run over subsided, and the realization of just how terrifying the preceding events were sunk in. There was no doubt about it. That van was intentionally trying to hit me. A cold, vicious sweat seeped into my scalp and slid down my back before dribbling off. I struggled to avoid falling into a panic. There was still the possibility that this was really just an accident. Calm down, Keiichi. But also don't be so naive, Keiichi. Being that lax will get you killed next time. You need to always be on your toes. Don't give them any openings. If my enemy was really out to kill me, then next time they would use a more reliable method. If that time came and I was acting like I was now, getting covered in mud was the price I had paid for my own naivety. What the fuck? Just, okay, I get it, we're naive, but stop throwing these different forms of naive at me. I'm not smart enough to pronounce things like that. Covered in mud, but without injury. Not even a sprain. Man, we got smacked by a mirror, so I don't know. Like, if that was, like, on our head, man, we would feel it. I guess this is what you would call the silver lining. I began walking again, this time cautiously. I wouldn't even show a hint of carelessness. I had suspected only Rena and the others up until now. No. It was because I had suspected them that I had believed there was no other enemies. Ueshi-san had said so, didn't he? And there was the possibility of a village conspiracy. Was I really mired so deeply in this situation that I had no choice but to try and carry on as usual? Wouldn't it be safest to just hole myself up in my house? But the moment I abandoned my regular routine, everyone around me would abandon theirs as well. That was just too horrifying of a thought. I'm telling you, there's other crazy people in this village. I recalled the tales Ueshi-san told me of when Hinamizawa was still called Onigafuchi. A frightening tale of an entire village of demons hunting their prey, surrounding them and eating them alive. One must not interfere with the demons. One must pretend not to see it. The enemy were numerous, the whole village. The villagers, with their unwavering faith in the curse, would do nothing to help me. We're gonna die. The strong sudden flash of sunshine made me slightly dizzy. I had no idea what was going on anymore. When I suspected it was the work of man, I would catch a glimpse of Oyashiro-sama's curse. And when I suspected it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, someone would poke their head out. What was coincidence and what was intentional? Who was my enemy and who was just a bystander? No. What I really, truly wanted to know was, how did I end up with the proverbial bullseye painted on my back? Eventually, an answer in a form I could understand will appear. I don't care when that will happen, because until then, I cannot die. That alone fueled my resolve to fight, and will keep me alive. I mean, I'm rooting for him. I have to. It's the only way that I'll ever, get any more information out of anything that's going on here. Alright, time to go find the bat. I remembered seeing the metal bat in the gym's storage shed, but there was a padlock on the door barring my entry. At the very least, I wanted to get my hands on it before everyone else arrived at school. I circled around the school grounds impatiently. But all I could find were things like pieces of lumber, nothing that I could bring into the classroom easily. Then I had an epiphany. I should search inside the classroom. If it was something in the classroom to begin with, then there wouldn't be a problem. We could just use a pair of scissors, there we go. I could tell that everyone's indoor shoes were still in their lockers. Good thing I came early, no one else was here yet. I wondered, what could I find in the classroom? I didn't think I could find an especially effective weapon like a bat. but it couldn't be helped at this point. Until the gym storage shed was open, I needed to find a substitute. A lingering hint of naivete? Is that how you pronounce that? Whatever. Whispered at that there was no way I'd be attacked at school. No, we're definitely gonna get attacked at some point. I'm sure of it. Whoever wants to be the craziest will, lose their patience and bada bing, bada boom. Literally. But such soft ideas would no longer protect me. To think that they were slowly making their way into parts of my life that I had once thought impenetrable. In the worst case, my own house might not be safe anymore. Well, no, when Rena can just, waltz up the stairs and listen in on our conversation, absolutely not. Shit's spooky. That was an incredibly frightening thought. But I believed that not considering the worst case scenario would have been even more frightening. Anyways, I will survive. So long as I lived, then I will definitely be able to escape this labyrinth of nonsense. Definitely. I'm gonna hold out. I have to hold out hope. I really do, and I will continue to. My exploration of the classroom came to an impasse. That much was to be expected. There was no way there would be anything that could be a weapon in the classroom. In case of an emergency, there was probably nothing I could do but swing my own chair around. My gaze landed on the lockers that had come to be used for personal storage. The locker that Mion used to store her pile of games was among them. There was one for each person in the class all lined up. Excuse me. Of course, there was one for me as well. Oh yeah, there was supposed to still be a tracksuit in my locker. Seeing me covered in mud would be strange. I should go change later. But first I needed a weapon. If one of my classmates came, it would be hard to rummage through all the lockers. I swiftly began opening the lockers one by one. They were mostly just filled with things like gym clothes, personal items, and umbrellas. An umbrella. If I couldn't find anything better, then this would have to be my weapon. I was about to give up on finding anything decent when I opened a locker that held exactly what I wanted. It's a bat, isn't it? A metal bat, oh my god. It was well worn and pretty beaten up, but there was no doubt it was usable. In that locker that reeked of mold, there also hung a baseball uniform. It was probably the locker of a student in a Pee-wee league or something like that. If that was the case, then he'd probably ask for it back. At that time, I could hear the voices of children scuffling their way noisily in from the hallway. Amongst them, I could make out Rika-chan and Sadako.
おはようございますです。あらあらあら、今朝はお早いですわね、ケイチさん。
I nonchalantly hid the bat I was holding behind my back.
なんなんですの、その身なりは。泥だらけでしたよ。
まあ、ちょっとあってな。すぐ着替えるから勘弁しろ。
With that said, I began taking off my clothes. Sadako began to blush just as I expected her to.
レディーの前でお着替えなんてしつけがなってませんことよ。
着替えをじーっと見てるレディもしつけがなってないと思うぞ。男子は更衣室がないんだから諦めろ。
As Sadako feigned disgust, she went into the hall still blushing. Conversely, Rika-chan continued to stare at me preparing to change.
リカちゃんもレディーなら着替えを見てるのは良くないと思うぞ。
僕はレディーじゃないですからいいのです。
Well, what the fuck? She deliberately pouted and looked at me with upturned eyes.
じゃあリカちゃんも今からレディーだ。
レディーなら仕方ありませんです。
Huh, well that worked. Rika-chan, appearing to be satisfied with being considered a lady, made her way to join Sadako in the hallway. Just as I breathed a sigh of relief, Rika-chan stopped suddenly and turned back towards me.
ケイチは野球を始めますですか？
It seems that Rika-chan had noticed the bat.
ああ、ちょっとさ、体がなまってさ、ちょっと素振りでも始めようかなってな。
健康に気を使うのはとても良いことだと思いますです。
She was talking like an old lady despite her appearance. After saying that, Rika-chan started to leave again but stopped and looked back at me once more.
そのバット、なくさないでくださいね、です。
That sounded vague. It seems she already knew I took it out of someone's locker. There was no name on the locker door. I didn't know whose bat it was, but I would be borrowing it until they complained. I feel like it might be what's-his-face's that isn't a part of this world anymore. It wouldn't be for long, just until the gym storage shed was opened. After quickly changing into the tracksuit, I checked the time. I still had plenty of time before class began because I came so early. So what are we gonna do? I took the bat in one hand and went out to the schoolyard. That was, of course, to practice my swing. I needed to make it known I would always have a bat on me so I could practice my swing. At some point, the sunlight had become even stronger. Disregarding my classmates as they made their way to school, I took my position in the shadow of the school building. I wasn't the academic type, and I wasn't much of an athlete either. I might get muscle pain if I just suddenly start swinging. I should at least start out with some warm-ups. I doubt anyone would think I was doing something out of the ordinary, which was the exact opposite of my actual mental state. I gripped the bat and swung lightly. The bat was by no means light, well, it's metal. The weight would make it a reliable weapon when I needed it to be. Of course, I could only pray that the moment I needed to use this as a weapon would never come. Just carrying it around could deter attacks against me. At least that's what I hoped. Yeah, I played baseball when I was a kid one time.
あれケイちゃんあんた何やってんの
Being bombarded with such a hysterical voice, I jumped.
ああ、ケイチくん、野球部だよ。野球部だよ。
What baseball team? We're barely even a school. It was Rena and Mion.
先に行ったって言われて驚いたけど、ケイちゃん、あんた何やってるわけ？
見てわからないかよ。素振りだよ。甲子園だよ。別にダイエットでもいいぞ。
ダイエットってケイちゃん、そんなに太ってたっけ？
ああ、知らなかったろ。実は三段腹なんだ。もちもちでタプタプなんだぞ。
もちもちでタプタプ。
レナ、変な想像しなくていいぞ。
To disrupt Rena from imagining something that vulgar, I ruffled her hair messily.
じゃあまあ、頑張って県大会を目指してちょうだいよ。
Man, we're really hoping for a lot here.
おじさん応援してるわ。野球部の強い高校教えよっか。そこにいる左腕の亀田くんがすごいピッチャーなんだけどさ。頑張ってね。
Seems they've already taken me for a baseball nut. Oh well. Well, if I really did make it to the championship, it would be a cinch? A chinch? I think it's cinch. I think that's how you pronounce that. I've seen that word and I've heard that word. Why am I struggling? After all, I'd be the pitcher and catcher. I'd pitch the ball, then run past the ball I just threw, and change over to being the catcher in a burst of super incredible explosive speed. I laughed dryly at the ludicrous image. Coming back to my senses, I smashed the bat against the ground.
さあ、何笑ってんだよ、俺。
Yeah, what are we doing? I pounded the ground over and over. With each impact, the reverberation traveled through the bat, stung my hands. If they smile at me like that, Ugh. Don't allow anyone close to me. Don't trust anyone. No matter how many times I tell myself that, if they made me smile like that, Ugh. I already knew quite well that there were demons dwelling in my smiling friends, but I just couldn't believe it. Did that kind of split personality really exist? Like how Rena confessed to the doctor? Were they simply being possessed by Oyashiro-sama? In other words, did a supernatural being like Oyashiro-sama really exist? And was it possessing everyone to try and kill me? Yeah, that would be wonderful. If only everyone were actually my friends all along, and everything was all just Oyashiro-sama's fault.
前原圭一のバカ野郎！だから！
I yelled out, drawing out all of the power from the pit of my stomach and raised the bat violently in the air.
甘えるんじゃねえ！
As I screamed out with all my might, I beat the metal bat into the ground over and over. With every impact, my weakness was being beaten down. Smash, forget. Smash, don't be soft. Smash, know your enemy. Smash, like hell I'd let them kill me. My shoulders heaving up and down from my ragged breathing, I heard the first bell ring just as I calmed down. Well, time to get back to the grind. Maybe? Okay. These transitions, man, they make me question what's going on. I gasped with my sudden realization. That was the final bell. As I felt all the tension drained from me, I let out a deep breath. My mind was in a muddled state for much of the entire day. I didn't feel like I was awake, but it didn't feel like I was asleep either. I couldn't say it felt especially comfortable, but I felt a kind of relief that the sanctity of the school part of my daily life had yet to be violated. How long would I have to keep on living like this? I could only grit my teeth and bear with it as this living hell slowly gnawed away at me.
Keiichi-kun!
Yes.
やろうやろう。部活の時間なんだよ。だよ。
The sound of Rena's voice brought me back to my senses.
ほらほら、ケイちゃん、ぼーっとしない。机を寄せて寄せて。
Everyone was moving their desks together as usual. Will we do it this time? That's right, it was a happy, fun club time. But I had no intention of taking part. I haphazardly stuffed the contents of my desk into my bag as I prepared to go home. It was a weak-handed gesture to avoid having to actually say I'll be going home for now.
なんだよ、ケイちゃん。今日も直帰なわけ？
Mion sounded quite disappointed.
気分が乗らないんだ。しばらくほっといてくんないかな。
The tone of the words that spilled from my mouth matched Mion's disapproving glare. It felt like the air in the room had dried out. Sadako looked like she was about to say something, but perhaps dissuaded by the mood, she swallowed her words and stayed silent. Nobody said a thing. I took that to mean that I could leave if I wanted. But the collective gaze of the four of them, like the tiny pins used to mount an insect in a display, held me in place. Rena was the one who cut through the heavy mood.
ケイイチくん、やっぱり女の子と一緒に遊ぶのなんか嫌だったかな？かな？
I don't think that was the issue. I actually kind of forgot about the whole, 1 to 4 ratio deal that was going on here. She said it in such a melancholic tone that it sent a wave of pain racing through my heart. If this pain was going to kill me, I wanted it to be the soft part of me that could still feel pain. I tore at my chest, violently tearing out the pins that held me in place.
そういうわけじゃねえよ。
I'd only be hurting myself by saying anything more, so I swallowed my words. Cutting things off there, I turned away and exited the classroom. They didn't speak a word to me as I left. Sorry, gang. We out. Again. It was a long, dull trip back home, but I didn't lose focus. I firmly squeezed the grip of the bat, which was already soggy from sweat. Realizing that, I wiped it down with my sleeve. If something were to happen, I wouldn't want it to be slippery. Since this morning, I'd become especially sensitive to the presence of cars. Even while walking, my ears pricked up and sought out threatening sounds and presences that could be closing in. And that was why I could hear it. Without a doubt, there were footsteps. Those footsteps had matched up perfectly with mine for a while now. From what I could sense, it was just one person. But I had no intention of being careless. Did they intend to follow me like that car this morning? Until we were in a good location to assault me? Then it wasn't a good idea to keep walking like this. I stopped walking and looked back. The wooden path, crowded with trees, responded with silence, as if there was nobody there to begin with. But I wouldn't be fooled. I was certain footsteps were following me. And just as I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well, meaning the person following me wanted to keep their distance. That was, without question, proof that I was their target. I held my breath, waiting for the presence to panic and start moving again. The trees rustled with the sound of the wind. The Higurashi also joined in this dissonant chorus, trying to throw my focus into disarray. Had 5 minutes passed? Or had I been like this for a whole 30 minutes? It was so hard to breathe that I might have suffocated. It seemed I would be the first one to panic. Without a doubt, he was lurking in the shade of that tree with bated breath. Then I'd make the first move. I fixed my grip on the bat. I raised it up to my shoulder to be ready to swing it at any time.
おい、いるんだろそこに。
With all my might, I screamed at whoever was hiding in the shade of the trees. But the presence in the shade didn't budge. Until the moment I found them, they had no intention of revealing themselves.
分かってんだよ。そこにいるのはよ。
I screamed out angrily at them, but even still, they didn't move at all. Then I'll go over there myself. Oh, that's what they want. That's exactly what they want. With all due vigilance, I approached step by step. Stepping into the tree's shadow, I saw a human figure there. That figure was curled up like a small animal. Oh shit.
レナ。
When she realized I had found her, her expression softened. She seemed apologetic, but wasn't going to speak a word.
なんか俺に言おうかよ。
I wouldn't accept that silence and screamed the question at her.
別に、
Rena was in a panic with tears welling up in her eyes. But it was obvious that she had been following me.
部活はどうしたんだよ。
ケイチ君がお休みしたから、レナもお休み。
関係ないだろ。俺なんか気にしないで遊んでろよ。
だって、ケイチ君のこと心配で。
Thinking about how I'd been acting up until now, it wasn't hard to imagine that my behavior could have been perceived as strange. So Rena was concerned. At a quick glance, that's how it would seem. But I wasn't going to let my guard down that easily. Even if that was really the case, she still wouldn't have had to say, or wouldn't have to do something to try to tail me. She should have called out to me when I was leaving and gone out right with me. But Rena didn't do that. She kept her distance from me and matched my walking speed. On top of that, she matched the sound of her footsteps and deviously tried to hide her presence from me. Then after she realized I noticed she was there, she held her breath as she tried hiding from me. She wore a timid expression that would force one to take pity on her, but without a doubt, she was tailing me.
もうついてくんなよ。
Still glaring at Rena, I continued walking onwards. After I'd walked for a bit, she ignored my command and began walking again, so I yelled at her once more.
ついてくるなって言ってるだろ。
だって、レナの家も同じ方向だし。
じゃあレナが先を歩けよ。レナが見えなくなったら俺も歩く。
I moved out of the way and waved my bat violently to urge her forward.
レナは、ケイチ君と一緒に帰りたいな。
Making a pitiful expression, she meekly squeaked out the words in a voice that she knew would cut into my heart. That agitated me to no end. I knew it was a lie. If you wanted to go home together, then you should have called out to me. Now you're just blurting out random lies.
ごめんなさい。
It seemed that the seething anger within me was written all over my face. Even without me saying anything, Rena had understood what I was feeling inside.
分かったならほら、行けよ。
I swung the bat, urging her again to walk. Rena looked back and forth between me and the bat and started walking hesitantly, and then stopped again.
早く行けよ、早く。
行くから、そのバットやめてよ。怖いの。
Rena guarded herself while pointing at me at me holding the bat, She may have realized that I wasn't planning on using the bat for baseball. I lowered the bat, but she guardedly opened the way for her. But still guardedly opened the path for her, I am struggling with words today, I apologize.
これなら文句ないだろ。
There was nothing else she could protest. She passed by me timidly so as not to set me off. As I watched her pass by, she stopped completely after having barely moved at all.
おい、立ち止まるなよ。
Then a powerful gust blew past us, barraging my face with dust. I don't like how this is gonna go. The dust got into my eyes and clouded my vision. While rubbing my eyes with my left hand, I swung blindly with the bat in my right, protecting the small opening I had presented. But Rena didn't even try to attack during that opening. Attack me? No, she hadn't budged an inch. I could tell from the sound of her fluttering skirt in the wind. As her skirt settled, so did the silence. At that moment, the voice inside me immediately warned me of impending danger. I was caught by surprise. The smell of the air had changed. Without me realizing it, the air around me suddenly felt like a calamity was about to befall me. It was like the air had suddenly become invisible concrete, like Rena and I were locked in this space. Rena didn't move an inch. Also unable to move, I stared at her back. I have a bad feeling about anything that's about to happen here. Rena was the first to break the silence. Instantly, she altered her stance. Oh, here we go. Oh no. Yep, I felt like I just witnessed her shift from Rena into that other person who looks like Rena, yep. But the voice was one I knew well, which filled me with a kind of bewildering pity. Carelessly, I felt relief upon hearing that pitiful voice. Okay, there we go.
ごめんね。
That statement started up a second late there. Too shy to even turn around, Rena squeezed her voice out desperately as she trembled.
なんだよ。
どうしてバットなんか持ってるのかな
Didn't we tell her that this morning? The question Rena asked was by no means unexpected.
俺が何を持ってたっていいだろ。
でも、昨日まで持ってなかったし。どうして突然。
別に突然でもいいだろ。俺がバットを持ってるとおかしいかよ。
だって圭一くん、野球とかしない人だったでしょ。おかしいよ。
I couldn't tell what kind of answer she was looking for, and I was getting tired of answering her.
突然、野球がしたくなったんだよ。それじゃおかしいか？
おかしいよ。
She answered instantly, and that annoyed me slightly.
突然野球がしたくなった。素振りがしたくなったから、バットを持ち歩いてる。それのどこが変なんだよ。
変。おかしい。絶対。なんで圭一くんまで。
ぶつくさとうるせえやつだな。
That why you too part is kind of disturbing. Wait a minute.
俺がスポーツに目覚めるのが、そんなに変かよ。
I tried to sound a bit more threatening to end the conversation. Until my suspicions about Rena were cleared, I had no obligation to answer her questions.
ごめんね。そんなに怒らないで。
Rena still didn't turn around and spat out... Yeah, Rena still didn't turn around and spat out words of apology one after the next. Sorry.
最後に一個だけ教えて。
これ以上話す気も教える気もねえよ。早く行けよ。
I yelled loudly at her, causing her to flinch like she had been struck. Seeing her in such a pathetic state caused my heart to ache sorely. But even though she was afraid, she stubbornly kept herself from moving. Before I was able to threaten her again, Rena asked her final question.
なんでバットまで同じなの？
Fuck. What did she mean by the bat was the same? I had no idea what she was talking about. Yeah,
お前、何言ってんだ？
it's Satoshi's, huh? It's gotta be his.
だから、なんでバットまで同じなのかなって。
何を言ってんだか全然わかんねえよ。もっとはっきり言え。
Even still, Rena didn't turn around. After inhaling deeply, she screamed.
だから、どうして
Yep.
バットまでサトシ君と同じなの？
Yep, this is Satoshi's bat. I called it, bro.
え？
Like 30 minutes ago, I called it. Upon hearing the name out of the blue, I became dumbfounded for a brief moment. By Satoshi, did she mean the student who transferred out last year? No, that couldn't be. Rena had tried to cover it up by saying he transferred, but Ueshi-san told me quite clearly that he was missing. He was the student who sat at my seat up until last year. He was believed to have been demoned away by Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't know the details about his disappearance. The aunt he lived with was killed the night of the Okay, I've actually been pronouncing this wrong for a while. Watanagashi. There we go. I guess I've been saying is like the ta and the na kind of mixed up here and there. I don't know if it's all the time, but sometimes I would say Wanatagashi, but it's Watanagashi. Anyways, a drug addict, and not long after, he suddenly vanished and was now missing. That Satoshi and I were what? My gaze fell to the bat in my hands. Could it be? Satoshi Hojo. It was a bit difficult to see, but that was what was written on the white tape at the end of the bat. I see, so this was Satoshi's bat.
ああ、これサトシのバットだったんだな。誰も使ってなかったんでちょっと借りたんだよ。いいだろそれくらい。
そんなことじゃないの。
The way Rena said that made it seem like this bat was something that should never be touched. Like it was some sort of offering at a shrine or a memento of the deceased. I could only stand there, perplexed and unable to respond. Rena continued speaking without waiting for a reply.
サトシ君の時とどうしてそんなにまで同じなの？
Yes. Rena was talking about more than just the bat belonging to Satoshi.
サトシ君もそうだった。野球チームには入ってたけど、本当は野球なんか好きじゃない人だったのに。
それが俺とどう関係が？
So everything that's been happening to us happened very similarly to Satoshi, huh?
サトシ君もある日突然バットを持ち歩き始めたの。チームに入ってただけでスポーツなんかしない人だったのに。
Okay, shoot, we really gotta wrap this up. Like, I actually need to go and run. It's getting late. What about it? I closed my mouth before I could say that out loud. Listen carefully, Keiichi. Rena is trying to tell us something important.
サトシ君もね、ある日突然一人で登校するようになったの。
Oh, it's really lining up
ケイチ君
here.
みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然素振りの練習を始めたの。ケイチ君みたいに。そしてね、ある日突然バットを持ち歩くようになったの。
Just like Keiichi-kun. Yep, there it is.
そしてね、ある日突然。
Then one day he suddenly what? Rena had swallowed her words. Rena's sudden silence brought a hush back to the surrounding area. It was then that I could finally digest the content of the entire conversation. She was saying my chain of actions was exactly the same as Satoshi's. What was the meaning of this? Up until now, I had forgotten all about Satoshi. I had never paid much thought to him in the first place. Not only that, I didn't even know anything of what he'd done. My actions today should have been my own creation after all the planning I had done. But they had been the exact same as Satoshi's? And Satoshi, no, more importantly, if both Satoshi and I acted the same, then there was a really good possibility that what happened after would be the same.
レナ、ある日突然サトシはどうしたんだよ。
Alright, well, as we lose our composure and start conversing more with Rena after we told her to disappear, or walk ahead of us, I'm gonna save the game and end this long episode here. I don't really know how much more we have to go. I really don't, but I really do want to squeeze this in before Halloween, or at least to have the finale on Halloween or whatever. So, the episodes coming to the end will be varying in length. Apologies for that. But, damn. What a bunch of shit that happened here. We almost got ran over. We're trying to do something that sounded smart and unique, but was completely done by somebody who most likely died before we came here. So that's worrying. So no real spooky moments, at least in my opinion here. There were some definite moments of concern that popped up, like right now. So that I can appreciate, not having to be spooked for once. But I'm sure next time, oh man, these next episodes, these recording sessions, they're going to be long and they're going to be hard. Oh boy. Well, thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take it easy.